Welcome to the show, SEC Football Live here from the 440 Sports Network, brought to you by ML Rose. 6 great locations in Middle Tennessee, a 7th one coming soon. Best burgers and craft beer in the city. So if you're in Nashville, come on by and check it out. I am Braden Gall, and that is JC Shurburtt covering all things South Carolina. JC, great to see you. You can catch him, of course, the Big Spur, 24/7 Sports, of course, covering that and inside the Gamecocks. And JC, it's been I feel like I've known you for a very long time.
I have. I was telling gosh, we're at this point now where we tell stories about the good old days, right? And I was telling somebody that you and I and Chris Childers and Greg Ladkey all started Rivals at the same time back in 04. And you weren't on this trip, but Ladkey, Childers, and I were. We got sent to the Michael Orr press conference.
Oh, that's right.
And little did I know that Michael Orr would be famous, more famous than he was at the time. And so certainly a lot of great memories from back then. It was a simpler time, but
yes, it was.
Yeah, I've actually known you probably for like 21 years, man.
There was no free shouts but it's a defunct organization now, a defunct business. And if you're going to go get a great beer in Nashville, you're obviously going to go to ML Rose. But many nights at Dan McGinnis on Demumbrian.
Yes,
that was like Ladkey's favorite spot to go to.
I remember those we were much younger back then.
Yeah, yes, we were. My body felt younger and was in fact younger. So there you go. We're going to do South Carolina State of the Union. I want to get into where Shane Beamer's at in the development of this roster. Obviously, lots of expectations around LaNorris Sellers coming back for his second full season as a starter. Lots of NFL hype around him. I'd love to know what's going on inside the organization from an administration standpoint. So our spring State of the Union, as we sort of do this time of year every year, we kind of go through the conference and look at every team, dive into sort of what's going on in the building. And so I want to discuss, obviously, South Carolina is one of the most fascinating teams in this conference as we get into talking season here in the summer, because there's so many expectations. This team has been very good, of course, at the end of seasons. They were great again last year down the stretch. The defense was good. The offense was even better, over 7 yards of play. What was the outside of LaNorris Sellers finding his footing, let's call it, for lack of a better cliche? What is the thing that you put your finger on that allowed the team to win 6 straight down the stretch and to be as solid as they were in the month of November, and frankly, every year of Shane Beamer's career in the month of November?
Well, I think that with last year specifically, they started blocking better. Really starting with the Texas A&M game. They went to Oklahoma and their defense scored twice, and that game was over before it started. And the second half they had trouble blocking like they normally do, and it's kind of just a run out the clock type of game. But against A&M, Rocket Sanders, went for about 144 yards. Sellers went for 106 against a very good Aggies D line. They were able to block. Now, was the protection and run blocking great all year? No, I wouldn't say that, but gelling a little bit there, having Sellers kind of go from a guy that was sort of feeling his way a little bit to kind of letting it loose naturally. I mean, the game against Vanderbilt right there in Nashville, Vanderbilt sends a guy off the edge. Nobody blocks him. Backed up down toward his own end zone. Sellers somehow gets out of it, fires a 50-yard pass, and they got out of what I call the kill zone at Vandy football after Jerry Kill with a 21-point win. The runs against Clemson. Clemson decided they were going to blitz every play. He just ran right by him. I think just getting him more comfortable was a big difference in that offense, and they won different ways too. The Missouri game, Missouri had a good game plan as far as not letting him run, but he was able to throw for 353 yards and beat him through the air and lead a last minute, really two-minute drives at the end of that crazy game to win that one and snap a losing streak against Mizzou. So I think blocking, along with, just your normal maturation process for a young quarterback, to where it kind of, as they say, clicked more. And it ended up, South Carolina was one of the hottest teams in the country down the stretch. They beat a bunch of ranked teams. It was really as impressive as the 2022 ending was, beating Tennessee and then going up to Clemson and winning, sustaining it for as long as the whole month of November. They were one of the best teams in college football. Was actually a step forward for the program under Shane Beamer.
Shane Beamer overachieved in his first year. He overachieved again in his second year. Really brutal schedule in his third year. So if you want to call that sort of like a makeup season, I guess you could call it that. And then again last year, wildly overachieving. Is there something that he is doing, whether it's culture building? I know there's been lots of talk about sort of the shtick, and from an outside perspective, people kind of look at that and chuckle every now and then. But by and large, everyone's bought in to what he does inside the program. Is there something to that? What is what's the mystery there?
I absolutely believe there's something to it. The 2023 season, honestly, Braden, they had 12 offensive linemen out for extended periods of time. They were starting true freshmen all over the place.
That's not
they
good.
They had one running by the end of the year, one running back. I don't even know how healthy he was. And to your point about the culture, they're sitting there at 2-6 now. Granted, it's Jacksonville State, which could beat you under Rich Rod if you don't show up. They did. Vanderbilt, and then Kentucky, and then Clemson. They did lose that game 16-7, but they held the Tigers without an offensive touchdown and kind of a weird loss. But that team never gave up either. And so then you're coming in the next season, people are grumbling. The fan base is grumbling, nobody expected 5-7, blah, blah, blah. So you come into the next season with a new quarterback. People are kind of disappointed that Rattler's gone, and there was a 5-7 year to show for it. And LaNorris Sellers takes over as a redshirt freshman. The opener is a 4-point win over Old Dominion. Then the Kentucky win. Then there's two brutal, gut-wrenching losses at Alabama and at home against LSU, 3 and 2 points. And then a loss to Ole Miss that was ugly sandwiched between there. So they're sitting there at 3-3. They had 39 new players on the roster, not all portal, but between portal, transfer portal, and freshmen, there's a lot of new players, and a lot of guys like a Kyle Kennard and Rocket Sanders that were in their final year looking to the NFL. If you don't have culture and you're sitting there at 1-3 in the SEC, and you've lost to Alabama and LSU by a combined 5 points, you kind of maybe feel like, hey, this is it. Let's coast. I've seen it with other schools. But the culture kind of helped them rally. They had the big win at Oklahoma, and then away they went. So I believe in that kind of thing. I think nowadays with the transient nature, with the portal of guys coming and going, Mississippi State, for example, has 59 new players next year. Yeah. I mean, I think that's important, because when you get older transfers that are kind of going, looking more towards what's next, if things start going bad, they're going to start thinking about what's next. It's human nature. And I think if you have a good culture, you can keep that from happening. I also think it helps to ward off some of the transfer portal departures. Like this past year, they didn't really lose anybody. They didn't lose anybody that was going to play. So that's a positive too, as we all know, retention's important. And if you don't have people don't want to be there, they'll leave.
Did last year just shut all that sort of noise, I'll call it, at the beginning of the season up? Is it all just quiet now? Everybody's in love and all pulling in the same direction, or is it?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I think so. I think in the SEC these days, you're one bad year away from everybody being upset. I mean, and the problem is with the way the league is now, Braden, you could have a really good football team like Florida and Oklahoma next year, for example. They'll both be demonstrably better, but look at their schedules. I mean, it's kind of luck of the draw sometimes. But I think everybody's happy with Beamer. I mean, you look at Beamer's first 4 years at South Carolina compared to Steve Spurrier's, and it's identical. And Beamer has more top 10 wins. Beamer has more wins over Clemson, which is important. Beamer has more NFL draft picks than Steve Spurrier did his first 4 years. I mean, it's an identical record of 29-22. And we saw when Spurrier was given time what he did, and Beamer's a really good recruiter. And people kind of see this place as cycling up now, whereas after a 5-7 year where you did have at least like 7-5-ish expectations, and Rattler goes, that was a little bit different feeling by the fan base, obviously, that desperately wants to not only get back to what Spurrier was doing when he was at South Carolina, but maybe surpass that. Spurrier left some things, didn't do everything he could have done. So that's the hope. But, you really look at last season, Braden, that LSU game, had they won that with the way the tiebreakers work, they not only would have gone to the playoff, they would have been in Atlanta playing Texas. So a bad call, or however people want to spin it, cost them not only a chance to be a playoff team, but
it was a personal foul, JC.
Play for the SEC championship. That one, the offensive. I mean, there were a lot of bad ones in that game, but so anyway, that's about as close as Carolina's been since 2013.
You can't rough the hindquarters of a quarterback. Okay, there's no butt roughing. You can't rough
the hindquarters.
So let's look at this roster big picture. And I'm not asking for specifics necessarily, but I'd love to know the roster build, because Shane Beamer got the job because of his ability to recruit and sort of understanding that part of the game. And certainly it's been a huge part. Roster management, you already mentioned. Retention, I know you and I have sort of got a background in all this stuff. But you look at the draft picks and you go Emenwari, you go Knight, you go Sanders, all second-round picks. And then you add Hemingway and, of course, Kennard as well. All fourth round or better. 3 of those guys in the second round, all 5 on defense. What is the state of the roster relative to the very high expectations and relative to the last, his first few seasons? Where is the overall health of this roster talent-wise relative to the first few years he's been running it?
Yeah, I think when you're looking at pure talent, there may be like in terms of no matter what, freshman, sophomore, whatever, long term, there's probably more NFL talent on this roster this year than there was last year, but it skews much younger than last season. The guys that got drafted, great, but they lost a starter, a good player, and all of them have signed undrafted free agent deals at every position. Except offensive tackle and quarterback. I mean, there's a starter missing, and you look at it, and in the secondary, Nicky Emenwari, but also Donald Fortune, who was a veteran player who was good. The linebacker core is gone. Bam Martin Scott, Demetrius Knight Jr., and Debo Williams are all gone. Defensive line, the whole interior is gone. And the end Kennard opposite Dylan Stewart's gone. So there's a lot gone.
That's all.
The whole interior of the offensive line's gone. Right. Rocket Sanders is gone, and the leading receiver on the team last year, tight end Josh Simon, gone. But that's why you recruit, and that's and I think at some point, for overall big picture for this program to emerge like it wants to, you can't. You just got to deal with it. I mean, there's schools that had much more talent drafted than South Carolina, right, Braden?
And Georgia had 13 players.
13 or what? They're not sitting there. Texas had a bunch. They're not sitting there worried about it. And you look and wonder. And heck, they got Arch Manning. Well, Carolina's got LaNorris Sellers, and on defense they have Dylan Stewart, who's also a fantastic player. So what they do, South Carolina is what I kind of call. They're one of 3 what I call hybrid / portal schools. Maybe 2. Maybe there's really 2 of those in the SEC, because Ole Miss is more kind of a main portal school. But you look at what South Carolina. Missouri and South Carolina kind of do it similarly. Close. Missouri's probably a little more portal heavy than the Gamecocks, but the Gamecocks have a little bit better geographic talent base to pull from, being close to Georgia and Atlanta. They've been getting guys out of Georgia that when we came up in recruiting, Braden, these guys Auburn used to get, Tennessee used to get. They've been doing a good job of that next tier. That Georgia's they're not takes necessarily for Georgia, but there's so many players. So they've done really well in Georgia, in-state, South Carolina players. You mentioned those guys that got drafted. 3 of them are in-state guys that were rated 4-star, a low 4-star or less out of high school. So those players pan out. They've gone into Maryland and DC and Virginia under Beamer, which they hadn't previously. So they got a nice recruiting base. Plus, they're really good at finding players in the portal to fit their needs. So I don't necessarily think it has to be this enormous step back. You're going to miss those guys primarily for a leadership standpoint and experience standpoint. But as far as this pure talent goes, I'll give you an example at linebacker. They're going to trot out Fred Johnson. He's a redshirt freshman. He's 6'4", 235, and runs 4.5.
That's good.
The guy he's replacing, Debo Williams, was all SEC linebacker a couple of years ago. He's about 6 foot, 230, 4'6", you know? So, and I think that's why you recruit, is that you get enough guys in there to do it. So, and I'm not being a homer, it's realistic. You lose that much talent. It's obviously, there's question marks, but if this program's ever going to take that next step forward at some point, you have to just say, hey, wish them the best, but we got ball players here and we're going to put them in. And it certainly is helpful when you got Sellers on one side of the ball and Dylan Stewart on the other.
Well, and that's the thing that I keep thinking about, and I was thinking about this a lot with Tennessee before Nico transferred, which was it didn't feel like the maturity of the roster was going to line up with the maturity of the quarterback for Nico, because he clearly wasn't, like, he was a caretaker last year. He didn't live up to the hype. He needed to take another big step forward this year if he was going to be good. But they lost, much like South Carolina, they're losing like 22-year-olds everywhere, like really old, established, like people that are married, with kids and stuff.
Yeah,
like it's just like that's so valuable to a program that is sort of trying to elevate itself to another tier. And I think and I'm just sort of workshopping this now because you kind of got me thinking about it, which is there going to be a season in which it all lines up for South Carolina, where you have all the experience and the talent that you're talking about, but it's also been around long enough, and Sellers stays, or is next year the only year, and you're going to have these 2 seasons where the quarterback was inexperienced, but the talent was there, or the roster was experienced, and then it flips, and all of a sudden now you've got the experienced quarterback, and it's very talented, but they're not really ready to be a championship team until the following year when they're all there in their second and third seasons as starters. Does that question make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Some of the fans on thebigspur.com have mentioned that 2026, my goodness, if you hold on to everybody. But it's like I tell them and tell everybody else, in college football these days, man, there is no such thing as tomorrow. You just never know. You never know what outside forces are going to impact it. You never know. So you better, I'll quote The Secret of Nim. You remember that? You remember that cartoon? Yeah, dude. Secret of Nim.
Did not expect that quote.
There's the evil rat Jenner at the end before he gets killed. He's like, take what you can when you can. And that's college football, baby. I mean, you got to take what you can when you can, like Jenner from The Secret of Nim. So I agree with that on paper. And I don't, I think it will be good for South Carolina, obviously, if LaNorris Sellers goes to the NFL, because that means he had a great year. But the rest of the roster, because they also went a little younger in the portal this year, Braden. They got a lot of guys that have like 2, 3, 4 years left that they got from the transfer portal. So the portal guys are even younger. My question on this would be, though, who else, because of the COVID year, is losing a lot of 22 and 23-year-olds? I look around the country, I see a lot. I've heard some talk out of Georgia that
Ohio State's losing a lot of veterans. Oregon's going to lose a lot of veterans.
They're all young. And that COVID year still kind of was a factor last year. You had guys in their 6th year or whatever, and but who knows? A federal judge could issue an injunction, and we've got 30-year-olds, man. All of a sudden, hey, I go back and play, right?
Just roll a grenade into the entire sport. It'd be great.
Good Lord.
Get Congress out of our sport is my advice, personally.
But yeah, I think, look, the expectations are probably a little high for the Gamecocks if you really dug into just the unknowns. But, I still think they have a chance to have a good team, and the schedule isn't, you don't have Alabama. Last year you had Kentucky, then you had LSU, Ole Miss, and Bama, 3 straight games. And you started 1-3. So there's nothing like that this year. Their first 3 conference games are Vandy, Kentucky, and Missouri. Should be.
Well, and what I think is interesting about the schedule for South Carolina, and part of the reason I think that they could marry the talent of the quarterback with the talent of the roster developing, is how easy the first 4, not easy is not the right word, but how manageable the first month and a half of the season is. And if you beat Virginia Tech, South Carolina State, Vanderbilt, Missouri, Kentucky, 5-0 is absolutely well within the realm of possibility, if not what you should expect. And so at that point, you then go really, really difficult in the second half. But Ideally, South Carolina is better at that point. This is also where Shane Beamer's teams have been very good. And even though everybody on that schedule is probably better, LSU, Oklahoma, Alabama, A&M, and Clemson all are probably better this year than they were last year. Ole Miss certainly is not. But that's the schedule could meet up with where the roster is developing in real time.
I agree. That's a very good point, Braden. And you're right about Beamer's teams. They do get better. I think just in general, teams with young players tend to do that. And I mentioned the linebacker, I mentioned Fred Johnson earlier. He played some last year, looked good doing it. But, first time starter. Well, when your linebackers aren't experienced and they're out there trying to make calls and read keys, they'll take false steps. They'll run the wrong direction. They'll get bounced out of a gap. That ends up being less and less with playing the more they play.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said for that. Now, I don't know that this is easy. I like Kentucky's got a lot of new players too, just like Mississippi State. I have no idea what to expect other than my hot take of the year is Zach Calzada will be better, or Calzada will be better than Brock Vandegrift. Trust me.
Zach Calzada still playing. Speaking of 23,
yeah, he's an old dude now. I mean, but I think that's my only prediction for Kentucky. He will be better than Vandegrift. But that game's in Columbia. Vandy comes to Columbia. Vandy scares the crap out of everybody and will continue to do so. That Missouri game's actually, that's going to be tough going out there. But if you can find a way to win it and 5-0 going to Baton Rouge, then hey, here we go. I mean, those teams all should be better. Will they be?
Who knows?
Like last year, I expected a lot of teams to be better than they weren't. I expected a lot of teams to be worse than they weren't. So
it sounds like you're sort of in the it's not a full step back, 2 steps forward kind of trajectory. It sounds like you're more like half a step back and then 3 steps forward. But does that include Sellers, of course, in 2 years? Who knows? When I see, because we're putting together the magazine for Athlon, the magazine rankings are coming out. The debate is sort of South Carolina, Florida, A&M for basically 5th place in that high teens, in that 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 range. I think if Lagway's fully healthy, I'd probably lean Florida. If Lagway's not, then I would definitely lean South Carolina. Is 9-3 still the right place to view this roster, this team, the combination of experience and talent? Is that what the fans are expecting, or are they expecting more? The rational one, at least?
Fans, because of what happened last year, they're going to think 10-2 will get you to the playoff. I mean, that's which it may not. Yeah. I mean, who knows? 9-3 could get you to the playoff this year. It just depends on the humans that are doing it. But I think if this team goes 9-3 this year, it's a good year. Heck, I think of 8-4, depending on how all that goes down. South Carolina has they're going to be better in the passing game. They're very, very young at receiver, but it's the best wide receiver class they've ever signed. And we know freshman receivers can step in and do well. Plus, Nick Harbor apparently is ready to take a next step. So passing game should be better. They should be able to run the football. When you have a quarterback like Sellers too, because of his ability to run and change the game in that way, sometimes you don't have to be as good, because Superman's going to put on his cape. Other team may have you dead to right, and he's going to do something amazing and score touchdowns. But, man, overall, I think that would be fine for next year. I think what Carolina fans would like is just some progress. I think what's going to happen is if they go 6-6, is there's a lot of the regret about our bitter disappointment about what happened last year because they were so close.
Yeah.
And so the natural expectation is let's keep moving. Let's get there this time. And sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't. It largely depends on really how some of these portal guys work out. And, really a lot of sometimes, Braden, it's what everybody else does. I mean, how good? I mean, LSU didn't have much of a defense last year. How good are they going to be this year on D? Looks pretty good on paper.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how are they going to replace their offensive linemen? There you go. I mean, how are they going to just have 3 more receivers step up like they normally do? I mean, there's so many questions about everybody that It's hard. It's hard sport to. I don't envy you having to do predictions. It's
we know less about these teams in like May, June, July, August than we ever have before in our lives ever.
I mean,
which makes the sport fun, honestly.
I'd be willing to bet a box of donuts that Mississippi State will be picked last in the league. And I would too, man. I would, but I was like, but you know what?
That's the only one.
They have 60 new players. Who knows? Who knows? They have 60 new players. What? You know, how do we know? I mean, I don't know. So, but yeah, it should be another fun year. And I mean, I think regardless of the record or disappointment, excitement, playoff, no playoff, whatever, South Carolina it feels like they're in good shape. And you mentioned like the window with Sellers. The good news in dealing with, you know, when talking to the Carolina fan base is they all said the same thing about Spencer Rattler.
And then here comes
I'm sure most Tennessee fans said the same thing about Peyton Manning. And then what happened?
Well, every single Tennessee fan said the same thing about Nico, and then immediately said, "No, don't pay him $3.5. That's too much money."
We're going to pass on that.
Wait, we need our attorney general to change the laws of this land so that we can pay Nico as much as we want, but not that much.
I will do anything for love, but I won't do that.
It's so ridiculous, but that's my alma mater for you.
Yeah.
All right, Sellers. 2 questions here, and we'll let you go. Sellers, over 11 yards per attempt in that 3-game stretch there at the end of the season, over 70% completion percentage. The passing game came around, obviously. Give me sort of what makes him special outside of what we saw on the field. Like, what is it that obviously size, skill, athleticism, like we talked about the running ability. Is there anything that makes him different than everybody else in any of the other elements of the game that you expect to add to his capabilities next year?
He's an honors student. He had a 4, I guess they do 5 point something GPAs now. I was not in that range, but straight A guy, Phil, really good at processing the mental part of it. A good dude, you know, he got a good NIL deal as he deserved and donated some money to his high school football program in South Florence High School, home of the Bruins. His brother is a freshman receiver on the team. You know, just a guy that he's a little different, you know, he's not brash. He's kind of understated when you hear him talk. Kind of reminds me of one of my nephews a little bit, just kind of that guy that, you know, he's kind of talking about, he's kind of highly a cerebral type. Yeah, so I mean, the off the field stuff with him is good, you know, and it's different in a good way. I think what makes him special on the field beyond just the normal stuff is the rarity, because the guy, Greg McElroy was talking about him, and he said, you expect a guy that big to be this big power. I mean, I heard some KJ Jefferson comparisons, and I thought that was crazy.
Cam Newton, right?
Yeah. I mean, you have this guy that's huge, but he runs around like he's 190 pounds, like the wiggle, the quickness. I mean, all that avoiding pressure. I mean, he can run over people, but he's quick. I mean, and you just a guy that big playing that position, that's so rare. You know, and that's what kind of sets him apart. I mean, at some point in the Clemson game, it just became comical. I'm sitting there with my buddy, and we're like, I mean, not
those fourth quarter, those second half plays were absurd.
I certainly wasn't laughing at the score, but I'm like, good grief, he did it again. I mean, it was unbelievable. So, and then that's just kind of what makes him rare. I think folks just can't figure out how to tackle him or get him on the ground.
All right, last one, I'll let you go. Make sure you check out ML Rose here in Middle Tennessee. My wife says it's the best ranch dipping sauce in Tennessee, and you've been to restaurants in Tennessee, so I know that's a bold claim. You know,
that is bold, dude.
Big time. It's big time.
I'm going to have to try next time I'm in town.
There you go. ML Rose, 6 great locations, craft beer, all kinds of great local breweries here in Nashville and in Middle Tennessee that are featured on those taps. They do they have a beer council where they select all the best beers. So if you're in town or if you're in Nashville, make sure you swing by one of those great locations. They got great happy hours during Saturdays and Sundays. So if you're watching baseball this time of year in the SEC, They have great happy hour drink specials and a great brunch menu as well. So you can check out all your SEC baseball while eating an SEC sandwich. It's literally called the SEC. So make sure you go check that out.
And a brunch menu. Good God.
There you go, man. ML Rose. And the 7th location is coming to my neighborhood, which my daughters and wife are very excited about. So,
nice. I'm writing that down.
There you go. All right. Last one here. And this is like one of my favorite questions now in the game. And that is sort of the state of resources and commitment from the administration, because everyone is gearing up for revenue sharing. NILs and collectives are a huge part of the game now. Retention is a big part of the game. Sort of where is South Carolina located within the conference among its competitors relative to its ability to compete in that area from the administration resources commitment standpoint to Shane Beamer?
Yeah, it used to be. I mean, I'd be lying if I said South Carolina got off to an outstanding start in that department. I work with the collectives and had my own collective there for a couple of years. It was a new thing. There were some miscalculations, but finally, it's the NIL budget for football has tripled year over year. Basketball has gone tripled. Baseball is up there. It's quadrupled. So those sports, women's basketball has always kind of had some money there. So the commitments there, the old AD, Ray Tanner, and the new AD, Jeremiah Donati, they're real. Ray kind of got some things going for it. Donati's kind of taking it to the next level. He came from TCU, so he knows. University of South Carolina is probably a lot like booster-wise, a Georgia or Alabama or someplace like that. Certainly not success-wise, but those schools don't necessarily have a Jimmy Haslam out there or something like that, or the Yellowwood guy at Auburn. They don't have like 3 super boosters. It's really more like spread out over time. Ole Miss is another fan base similar. So, the money's been doing that. Financial part's been fine. Like I said, they had very, very limited attrition off the football roster this year, and they're spending serious money and then talking to folks at Georgia and at other places around the league that I know, there's nothing that's dissimilar. There's not cutting corners or anything like that. One thing Shane Beamer in football won't do is if there's a player that's just above average and he wants stupid money, they won't spend stupid money on.
Go to Florida State.
Yeah, I mean, they won't. They're not going to spend stupid. They do a good job of evaluating talent relative to value. And so they don't do that, but other than that, I mean,
that's what a general manager is for these days in college football, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, Darren Usher is essentially the general manager there. He's a good guy, does a great job, but Shane Beamer works on that too. Yeah. I like, and Shane is the type of head coach that he's not offensive play caller, defensive play caller. He's got a mind for that kind of stuff, in my opinion. His background is in recruiting and stuff like that. So roster construction, obviously something he grew up with his dad at Virginia Tech. So I'm glad I kind of worry sometimes with South Carolina specifically that, if you take that away from Shane Beamer and you bring in some dude, I mean, because there's a lot of clowns out there, dude, that are trying to be these whatever. I think that would be a disaster because they've kind of hit the sweet spot with talent acquisition right now. Not just in the, going and signing a Dylan Stewart from DC, 5-star or whatever, but also where they go recruit, who they target, emphasizing speed, hitting the state. I mean, it's all kind of it's all kind of worked out nicely for them, more so than it did recruiting wise. Any coach that's been here as far as just the plan and all that.
I mean, the last time I had Shane on the show was probably, I think it was last summer, 2 summers ago. And he basically, I used the whole, I wasn't a coordinator as an advantage, not a disadvantage. Yeah. Right. Like you don't have to call plays to be a good head coach. You have to be able to see the whole picture. And that's stuck in my head, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, look, Dabo Swinney, Urban Meyer, never were coordinators. I mean, both 2 of the greatest coaches in our century, right? Yeah. Never coordinators.
Yeah, no question. JC, always a pleasure, my guy. It's great to see you.
Yeah.
Where can everybody find your work and follow South Carolina football?
Yeah, go to the Big Spur, thebigspur.com, southcarolina.247sports.com. Also, Inside the Gamecocks, the show and the morning shows, Inside the Gamecocks podcast channel. You can find that on Spotify, Apple, iHeart, Audible, wherever you can find podcast. Check that out. If you like the Gamecocks, check it out.
Dude, always a pleasure. Great to see you. Thanks for coming on. We'll talk to you next time.
Thanks, Braden.